Hey, what's going on guys, iiSketch here, welcome back, and today we're going to be going over the chargers in Splatoon 2. Before this video starts, I'd like to say to make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into the video. So starting off, we have the Squiffer. The Squiffer is very obviously like the montage and clip hitting sniper in Splatoon. It has a very quick charge, it has pretty short range, but it's pretty good at hitting clips because no matter if you're in the air or on the ground, you always have the same charge speed. But the best thing about the Squiffer is that you can actually use it effectively on ink rails. Now, I didn't learn this by myself. I actually was taught this or shown this by someone I met named Sour Breaks. I found them in a lobby one time and they were literally like moving around on ink rails like crazy and playing this weapon the most aggressive I've ever seen in all of Splatoon. Like, they have one of the most aggressive playstyles with chargers, especially with the Squiffer that I've ever seen. So next off, we're going to the Splat Chargers. This is a bit of a weird one to explain because the Splat Charger has three variants, right? And there should only be three, plus the hero variant. But for the most part, there's just three Splat Chargers. That's not exactly the case. There's actually six, or in this case, seven Splat Chargers. And what I mean by that is that there's actually a scoped variant and an unscoped variant of every Splat Charger except for the hero variant. The difference between the scoped and unscoped is just you can't hold your charge with the scoped variants, but you also are given more range and a scope. The scope is a good thing and a bad thing because although it does give you more range, it pretty much takes away your visibility when you're holding a charge, which in a way kind of makes this more of a aim and shoot type of sniper instead of just holding a charge, waiting for someone to come by and then just popping them because you already have a charge loaded. This charger is the one I used for the longest when I was playing this game at the beginning. Another thing, the scope variant actually charges faster than the unscoped variant. This goes for both the Splat Charger and the E-liter. If you're trying to hit clips or like going for a montage or something like that, I do actually suggest the scoped variant. It's a lot cleaner in montages because there's very visual transition between aiming in and shooting when it releases. Although, if you're in a competitive setting, I do suggest the unscoped because you get more visibility and you can just kind of pop off people without having to hold your charge or charge up before you shoot someone. Next up is the E-liter. Now, I do have a few things that I want to say about the E-liter. This charger is definitely my favorite weapon in the whole game. So it's very like close to me as far as like what it is and like what it can do. Which brings me into my next point, that for the longest time, I thought this was the worst weapon in the game by far. Now, as far as chargers go, they're, the ranged, one-shot, you all or nothing type of weapon. But with pretty much every other charger, they all have a bomb, and they all have a way to defend themselves if they're in close range. Now, every charger also has a mechanic to tap shoot, so they don't have to charge up a full shot to actually, get something off. But if you tap shoot, you definitely don't have the one-shot capability that you would beforehand. Tap shot pretty much is a guaranteed 3-shot, a 4-shot for the Bamboozler. I'm going to get into that later. But it's a 3-shot for pretty much most chargers. It's a pretty slow 3-shot and it has a decent amount of range. You don't really want to rely on this in close range. You want to rely on a bomb, which pretty much every other charger has. Which brings me back to the E-liter because on both of its kits, it doesn't have a bomb. And on top of that, it also doesn't have an aggressive special to, try to defend itself with. Which does make sense because this is the heavy defensive type of sniper. Now, personally, as far as what I would suggest with unscoped and scoped, because this does have, two different variants, the scoped variant I think is better. The E-liter isn't really a fast enough weapon to warrant having to save your charge and swim around in ink for maybe a second before it dissipates to move around. The swim speed that you have just default is good enough to use with the weapon, and the E-liter is only really as useful as I think it is if you are able to charge faster. But yeah, all in all, this weapon is a very long range or nothing type of weapon. If you beat someone in close range or you lose to an E-liter in close range, just know you got outplayed. Like, you got mixed. Like, there's nothing about it. You completely got destroyed. On the complete opposite side of the E-liter, which does, a lot of damage, a lot of range, stuff like that, we have the Bamboozler, which, like I said before, is a 4-shot if you tap shot. Well, that makes you wonder, how many is it if you charge it? Well, if you charge it, it's a 2-shot. This weapon does 85% of your HP. This is technically a marksman rifle where you actually have to get 2 shots to get a kill. This weapon is actually pretty deadly when paired with main power up, because just with 3 mains and 3 subs, or 3 mains and 4 subs, they might have nerfed it, I'm not entirely sure. You are able to get 99.9% damage in 1 shot. Now what this does is, since in this game you can put ink on the floor, enemy ink actually damages you slowly over time if you're standing in it. And the reason why this is so good for the Bamboozler is when you shoot, the ink goes on the ground if you're hit or not. The ink is always going to be on the ground, and if you step in it or stepped into it previously, you're going to die in 1 shot to a weapon that charges the fastest out of all the chargers uncontested. Which makes this weapon pretty deadly because it's pretty much the fastest TTK, fastest kill to kill. Like it can get the most kills per minute out of any weapon in the game if that 0.01% is dealt to anyone that it shoots. And next up is another one of my favorite charges in the game, is the Gootuber. Now the Gootuber is a bit of a weird one because out of every charger in the game, it has less range than all of them. It even has less range than some shooters. It's a very low range type of charger. It has less range than the Squiffer, it has less range than the Bamboozler, all of them. And on top of that, it also has a very slow charge speed, about the same as an unscoped E-liter, which is the slowest charge time in the game. So it makes you wonder, what does this weapon even have? If it charges slow and doesn't have very much range, what does it do? Well, to explain this the best I can, there was a thing in Splatoon 1 called half charging. And what that did is, if you put, damage up on your chargers, all you have to do is charge it at least halfway or 60% of the way, and you can get a kill because it does at least 100 damage. Now, I haven't really been mentioning the damage values for these chargers because it doesn't really matter. A full charge will kill, a half charge won't. But this is actually very important for the Gootuber specifically because it's the only charger in the game that can half charge. And that's because the damage when you're charging scales linearly. With every other charger in the game, even if you charge just barely where it's not full charge, if you get that, it'll deal like 79.8% or something like that. Like, it won't do the full damage. And that's something for like the E-liter, where its max damage is 180%, which is definitely enough to kill. The Gootuber also does 180%, but since it scales linearly when you're charging, all it needs is about a 50 to 60% charge, and it will definitely do that 100, and that's enough to kill. Not to mention, this weapon also has the longest time to hold a charge out of any weapon in the game by far. I think the hold charge time is around 14 to 15 seconds. I'm not sure which one it is, but I'm pretty sure it's 14, but I'm not entirely sure. That's kind of an odd number to use. But since it has this 14-second charge time, it's able to stay in ink and be pretty much undercover for a long time when it can just pop out and then just kill you with a half charge. Another thing with this weapon is it actually has a hidden piece of tech that I don't think a lot of people know about. And to further explain this, I have to first explain substrafing. Now, there are a bunch of videos on substrafing that already exist, and I can link some in the description below. But the simple part of it is, if you have a bomb in your hand, you can go in and out of ink quicker than if you just come out and then go back in. It's better for changing your direction very quickly and is pretty much the Splatoon equivalent to like dash dancing. The Gootuber has something similar. If you're charging while coming in and out of ink, you are actually faster than substrafing. Now, it is by only a few frames, which adds up over time, but in a very simple engagement, it's better to just use what you're more comfortable with, which if you just play the Gootuber, then probably, that. But aside from that, with every other weapon in the game, you have to substrafe. Even other weapons that have this hold charge mechanic or that are specifically known for being able to hold a charge, like the Nautilus, you still have to come out of the ink, wait for it to charge a little bit, and then go back in, which is something you don't have to do for the Gootuber, which is very weird. But with that being said, I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.